by himself, it's a legend. And what he's writing for Babar Azam, really, it's a great words. I think it's an honor for a Pakistani cricketer that Ricky Ponting is accepting. While we have seen in the past that Australians, they never admire any other player outside the Australia, but Ricky Ponting is speaking about Babar Azam. It's a great honor, I think. And why the people are criticizing in Pakistan Babar Azam to remove from captaincy, and they are always asking the questions about his figures, states, and everything. I think we should come forward, and we should get rid of from the system what we have got in the past. We should admire that Babar Azam is a great batsman, and still a lot of cricket has to come from Babar Azam. Babar Azam, what he has done, 17 or 18 centuries in one day, and many centuries in Test cricket. So he is still, he has to do a lot of things, and we have to go with the world. We should not go with our own feelings. What we are seeing in Pakistan, that some people and media and social media, they are criticizing Babar Azam for his captaincy, that Pakistan lost the match. But we should understand that Babar Azam has not lost a match against England or any other country, but the team, the 11 players, they have lost. If you are giving a bad team to Babar Azam, what can do Babar Azam? In the past, we have seen a lot of great batsmen, but haven't got a good team, so therefore they have lost the matches.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, KHALID. Today is the 27th of January 2023. It's a Friday, but we've got lots to discuss with you. Important events as they unfold. We'll begin with the Israeli barbarities on the Palestinians that has been going on unabated since quite some time. But of late, since a new ultra-nationalist, ultra-orthodox government took power, we are seeing a spate of new incidents that are targeting the Palestinians. The latest, what happened in Jenin, where 9 people lost their lives, were martyred, and around 20 were injured. And this is just one of the many incidents that happen. More or less on a very daily occasion, there is something that is happening in some part of Palestine to pressurize the Palestinians to abide by what the Israelis want. And this is just one part of what they are doing, whether it be also dislocating them from their current neighborhoods, from their houses, taking possession of their houses, and then telling them to leave the places where they have been living for decades. This is unprecedented as far as human rights records are concerned, and it is also high time that important organizations and countries took serious notice of what is happening before it's way too late. This is going to be our first segment. Our second story of the day, ladies and gentlemen, concerns the documentary that the BBC Two unveiled. It is a 2-part documentary on Narendra Modi, and rightfully, with facts and figures, has highlighted his role in the Gujarat massacre, in which more than 1,000 people lost their lives, 1,000 Muslims were martyred, in fact. And this shows on what the mentality of Narendra Modi, who was the then Chief Minister of Gujarat, was, and this is the mentality that he has taken forward since he took oath as Prime Minister, and he has been there since 2014. The way the total mindset of the people in India has changed, the way the so-called largest democracy or a pluralistic society or a pluralistic country that is known as India has changed from that to a completely different country is something that although a lot of countries in the world do not bat an eyelid, but we do, and other Muslim countries do as well. What has been the impact of this BBC Two documentary that has been banned in many parts of India, and of course has been shown in some of the universities? We'll be discussing that in detail and different aspects of that. Then our next story is going to be on India, of course, Canada, that has named its first anti-Islamophobia advisor. We all know about the attacks that have happened on Muslims across the world, and Canada has always been on the forefront, as we've seen in the past as well, as far as countries in the West is concerned, to counter Islamophobia and all the effects that come with it. Now, combating Islamophobia and religious intolerance is something that is extremely important. We see that every day. We see that in different parts of the world. We see that in India. We see that in Palestine as well, and we see that in other parts of the world. So a very good step in the right direction as far as the Canadian government is concerned. And finally, we're going to talk about Pakistan's contribution towards human rights norms, where Hina Rabbani Khar Sahaba is now leaving for Geneva to take part in a very important meeting, which is representing Pakistan at and showing Pakistan's National Progress Report under the Universal Periodic Review at the Human Rights Council in Geneva. This is happening on the 30th of January this year, that is in a couple of days' time. This is the last story. Let's come and let's begin our show with our first segment, and that concerns a very, very serious issue, and that is the issue of Palestine, an issue that remains unresolved since decades, an issue that began way back in the late 1800s but continues to date, and we are now in 2023. More in the following report.
Israeli troops have killed 10 Palestinians in one of the deadliest days in the occupied West Bank since Israeli raids intensified at the start of last year. According to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, 9 of Palestinians killed were in the Jenin refugee camp after Israeli forces raided the area. In the Jenin massacre, at least 20 others were wounded with live ammunition. The dead included an elderly woman, according to Palestinian officials. According to Palestinian Health Ministry, Israeli forces are continuously obstructing ambulances and medics. Israeli forces also fired tear gas towards the hospital, affecting the children's division, causing suffocation injuries to children and others. Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shattai called on the United Nations and international human rights organizations to intervene urgently to provide protection of Palestinian people and stop the bloodshed of children, youth and women. Muslim world condemned the Israeli raid on Jenin and called on the international community to stop Israel's escalating aggression. Jenin is among areas of northern West Bank where Israel has intensified raids over the past year in an attempt to crush indigenous Palestinian freedom movement. The number of Palestinians killed by the Israeli forces during raids in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem in January has risen to at least 29 people, including 5 children.
Now, to discuss this very important topic, we've been joined by 2 important guests in the studios. Our first guest is the Deputy Head of Mission at the Embassy of Palestine in Pakistan, Excellency Nader Alturk. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us.
Thanks a lot.
Our second guest is Dr. Saud. He's the Dean Faculty of Human Sciences and Social Sciences at the Bahrain University. Thank you very much. Our first interaction, nevertheless, I hope it will be a beginning of a long series of interactions. Thank you very much, Dr. Saud, to have joined us. I'll begin with you, Nader Alturk. The fact remains that Palestine and the issue of Palestine remains unresolved since more than a century. Whether it be Israeli occupation, whether it be the pre-Israeli occupation, and all that goes along with it, Palestinians have yet to get their due right to live in an area with peace and in an area that duly belongs to them. Why, after 100 years or so, we are still unable to resolve this issue?
First of all, we're going to repeat again what I said before in your noble program a few months before. The main issue is the double standard. That when Muslim or Palestinians do something, this is terror. When Israelis, American, British do something, this is freedom fighters, and he's defends the democracy, defends the human rights. This is a double standard. This is the first issue. Second thing is that, as you know, Israel was establishing on the Palestinian territories in 1948, according to argument said that the Jew was there 2,000, 3,000 years before. According to that, they have the right to establishing their own state again on the Palestinian territories, ignoring that the Palestinians are there since 12,000 years. So, who giving the right of 2,000 years people lies and said they was there 2,000 years before, when, and ignoring on the other hand, the people who are there since 12,000 years, who is give that ownership. And sadly, the United Nations follow that lies and recognizing Israel as a state according and giving them the right, legal right to establish their state according to 181 resolution, which make Palestine 2 states, one for the Israelis and the other for the Palestinians. And they're giving birth for the Israeli state, and they never give the birth certificate for the Palestinians, and they're ignoring the right of Palestinians, include establishing their own state in their own homeland, ignoring the right of return of the refugees who become refugees and lose their staying on their own territories and homelands since 1948 after the establishment of Israel. According to that, the conflict remain in the same circle of conflict, not circle of peace. We try our best in 1993. Actually, we start speaking about peace since 1974. Our parliament said that we are accepting the establishing of Palestinian state of any territories, the occupation going to be end of that land, or we went to free that land and make it independent. Later on in 1993, 1991, we're going to Madrid meeting in Spain, and we start speaking about negotiation. It was Palestinian, Jordanian one group, and the other Arab community starting negotiating with Israelis. 1993, we have Oslo Agreement, and we accept to establishing a state only in 22% of our Palestinian territories, of our homeland, with the historical homeland since 12,000 years. But in that time, Mr. Shamir, he was the Prime Minister of Israel. He said, I will negotiate with the Palestinians 20 years and they will never get anything on the ground. And this is what is happening day by day, that the Israelis use the time to build more and more settlements, kill more and more people, transfer more and more people, stealing more territories, destroy the dream of the Palestinians, stole even our custom money, they are stole it, and they try to kill the dream of the Palestinians to become independent one day for the next generations. So what is happening? That they are keep the promise of Shamir, Ishaq Shamir in that time, that he will negotiate, and we are actually negotiate since 1994 until now, and we didn't reach anything, only more blood, more killing, and more settlements, more stealing of the land. And when the action of the Palestinians as a freedom fighters to free their homeland, their people, even for, make their children safe, this is a crime by the Israelis, a crime by the Americans, a crime from some supporters for the Israelis. And when the Israelis are killing Palestinians, they are looking for peace and security, and they keep their security. This double standard again and again is the same question. When this going to be end?
That is a very important point. Dr. Adam Saud, in this circle of conflict and double standards, as has been enunciated by Mr. Nader Alturk, what should be the modalities or the methodologies to come out? Is there any way out of it, or has it become a vicious circle?
Well, thank you very much. I think this is a very important topic which you have brought here to discuss. I personally think there can be different modalities or different mechanisms to, we can't say that the issue is going to be resolved, but we can pacify the conflict, particularly the killings which have been started since 2022. We have seen that almost 170, if I'm not wrong, 170 people were killed during the last year. Almost 30 were the
200
children.
Palestinians.
And this year, since January, it's like 27 days, daily basis, you will see there are killings which are done by the Israeli troops in Palestine, particularly into.
And what has happened in Genese is unspeakable. I mean, this is just another state.
Indeed. So this actually, the situation highlights the double standards of the West, particularly. So what happens in Ukraine, particularly, a very small incident is highlighted in the media, that the human rights violations are being done by Russia in Ukraine. But look, what is being happened in Palestine. The innocent people, they are not only being killed, but as the deputy head of the mission, he has stated that people are being deprived of their lands, people are being deprived of their homes, and there is forced settlement by the Israelis, the Jews into the Palestinian territories. Now, we should focus upon the indigenous or the regional approach to resolve the issue. We should not be relying on the international bodies, because
but don't you feel people have already tried the regional solutions in the past?
Yes. But the things are unfolding now. There is a changing situation.
All right.
Particularly when you see that the Arab countries, I would particularly name the UAE. It has recognized Israel now. They have establish diplomatic relations with them. Then we have Turkey, then we have Azerbaijan is getting very close to Israel. So these are the countries which can play a very important role to resolve this conflict. And I think this would be a win-win situation for both the Arabs and the Palestinians and the Israelis. These countries have to come forward and they should be negotiating and they should be convincing. The problem is, when we have seen whenever Netanyahu comes to power, there are problems. There are atrocities against the Palestinians. But this time, when he has come again into power, the far-right government, there are people now who have joined this government, they are far-right people.
Ultra-Orthodox.
Yes, ultra-Orthodox people. Now, there is another, a theory which we, the students of international relations, we also talk about is the diversionary theory of war, where, you try to divert the attention of your people from internal issues towards, an external enemy type of thing.
So that the people see other things and not see the real problem that is emerging.
Yes, you're right. Another important thing, we have seen the populist leaders in the current world, be it Trump, be it Modi, they try to divert the attention of their people towards a so-called or, a fabricated kind of enemy. Trump did with the Chinese, the Modi is doing the same thing with Pakistan. And here we can say that the Netanyahu's government regime is doing the same thing against the Palestinians because they are soft target. They know that nobody is going to come and support the cause.
That's an important point that you highlight, and that is also something we were discussing before the show began. Nader, Alturk, is what is happening towards the Palestinians kind of soundproofing or visually impairing the people from seeing what is actually happening within Israel? Aren't there internal conflicts within Israel that Israel is deliberately trying to hide by inflicting such kind of barbarities on the Palestinians?
Actually, since the establishing of this radicalism government in Israel, led by Netanyahu, he started facing a problem in his own streets and his own people, because they are refusing this kind of government, because this government show the bad face of Israel, the real face of Israel, which they hide it since the establishment of Israel since 1948. So the Americans said, maybe we can't support Israel's government anymore with this kind of speech, because we can't support such of things. He started to make some criminal people to become ministers, was corrupted, was going to the Israeli jail. According to their laws, they are not allowed to become ministers. He tried to change the rules and change the judge, change the court's law, everything to be sure that they allowed them to be joining his own government, only because he can't getting the majority to support him without them. So this radical government, and I disagree with my brother, it is not a problem of Orthodox. Orthodox, there is some of the Orthodox like Naturi Karta, are not supporting the establishment of Israel, and they are said this Palestinian territories, this is land of Palestine, Israel not have the right to be a bear on the ground until Jesus came and establishing our state. So it is not a problem of Orthodox, the problem of radicalism. Okay, sorry for that. So what is Mr. Netanyahu do right now? He have a lot of marches, about more than 100,000 Israelis on the streets, front of his government house, refusing the attitude of this government, refusing the people who are in this government, and afraid of showing the real face of Israel and lose their own supporters. According to that, he tried to transfer the conflict from his own street to our streets, our refugees camp, our cities, our villages. This is one of the issues. Second thing, Israel never stopped their crime against humanity since the establishment of Israel. Israel was establishing on the Palestinians' blood, on the Palestinians' bodies, on the Palestinians' stolen lands. So Israel never changed this strategy since the establishing of Israel until now. They are keeping the same scenario. one day it is up, one day it is down, but still the same scenario, the same strategy, because this is their own ideology. Build their own state of own Palestinian territories without Palestinian in their own territories. So they want Palestinian territories without Palestinian. So how they can finish that? By making this crime against humanity, make people transfer Palestinian people from their territories. Who is still there, he going to be killed or afraid and escape from their territories, like what happened in 1948 and 1967. This scenario will not be repeated again. The Palestinian people will not going to do this such things again. We will not be refugees again. We are living in our own home, live or die in our own homeland. We will not leave it for such kind of people like this kind of criminal of people. If the international society is going to support our scenario for peace and justice, they are welcome. If they are not, and they ignoring our rights, ignoring the international laws, and ignoring the human rights standards, which was establishing for all the humanity, not only for Americans, not only for British, not only for Israelis. It is for all human beings. First world, second world, third world countries, all are equal. If they not believe of that, then they need to change their principles, and this is selected only for them, not for all the human beings. If they are ready to speak about that. This is the second thing. Third thing, our leadership still wise, still looking for peace, looking for stability in our regime. Who knows if democratic election next going to bring radical people who are not believing in peace, not believing in negotiation, or what the Israel is going to do. Okay, so right now they have the opportunity to deal with wise leadership, Palestinian leadership. This opportunity on the table right now, but who knows how long this is going to be on the table.
That is true, which brings me to the next question, and that is to Mr. Saud. You know, the Palestinian Prime Minister, Adam Saud Saab, Mohammed Shataya, released a statement. He called on the United Nations and other humanitarian organizations to intervene urgently to provide protection for the Palestinian people and stop this bloodshed. Do you feel that the international human rights organizations, the United Nations, can play a role? We've had Mr. Alturk talk openly about how the United Nations cannot move forward because of the intervention of certain powers. Do you feel international humanitarian organizations and the UN still have an important role to play as far as this important crisis is concerned?
Well, I would agree with my brother that, you know, international community, particularly if we talk about the international institutions, they have failed actually. It's been a long time now, but we don't have any other choice. You know, either you have to, if you're powerful enough, you just go and capture, like the the Israelis, they are doing with the Palestinians. They have occupied their lands, or you have certain institutions through which you try to, you know, resolve the issues. We have seen that, you know, since the inception of UN, there are so many issues at international level there which, you know, this organization has failed to resolve. They have given the Universal Declaration of Human Rights as well, which clearly states, you know, what kind of human rights every person has. And, you know, whatever is being done by the Israelis against the Palestinians is utter sheer violation of all those human rights.
Agreed.
We know. But nevertheless, you know, for the sake of highlighting the issue, for the sake of, you know, just to bring the conflicting parties onto the table talk to negotiate, as I stated earlier on that, you know, I don't see a solution to this issue in foreseeable future, where, you know, there would be a 100% peace.
But you know, as Mr. Alturk pointed out, at this moment we've got a Palestinian leadership that wants to go towards talks, that wants a resolution, that is a moderate leadership. But we don't know what the next leadership after the next elections could be. What if they are as you know, orthodox, or should I put it that way, or radicalist as the current Israeli government is? What then?
Yes, you are right. You know, this is an opportunity, but unfortunately, the other side is not cooperating at this time. You know, when you want to resolve a problem, to resolve a conflict, there must be a will from the both sides. So if I want to resolve the issue, but you are not willing to resolve, then the issue is unable to be resolved. Now what happens? There must be a third party. maybe a party that is more powerful or influential. That can resolve the issue. But in this case, the world powers, America is supporting, in fact, Israel against the Palestinians. Whatever is being done by Israel against the Palestinians, it is being supported by America. So what else we can expect? We can expect from the other bloc. But again, we see the other bloc is also having very good trade relations with Israel. So in this,
but I mean, I feel, Azam Saud Sahab, that some kind of middle ground needs to be achieved. Some kind of resolution needs to be achieved before it's way too late, before things get out of hand. They're already out of hand. The way this current Israeli government is moving forward as far as the brutalities towards the Palestinians is concerned, this is a huge question mark on the human rights situation in the Middle East and for all the important organizations that champion human rights.
It is indeed. That is what, I stressed upon the regional approach. Few of the regional countries, they can play an important role.
That brings me to my last question, and that is to Mr. Nader Alturk.
Yes.
Pakistan has always supported the Palestinian cause. Our Prime Minister also tweeted today. He's reiterated the unwavering support for the Palestinians in a very important message. So has the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. How important is the support of the Muslim world to the Palestinian cause?
Thanks a lot for this question. Actually, we always appreciate the Pakistani leadership, government, political parties, Pakistani people for their generous support for Palestine. You never turn your back for us since long time, since Qa'id A'zam until now we are supporting Palestine, and you will never stop, I hope so. With your support we are stronger, with Muslim Ummah support we are stronger, with the support of our friends around the world, Christians, even Jew, we are stronger. And as I mentioned before, that Naturi Karta, it is a Jewish religious group, and with that they are ignoring Israel as a state. They're ignoring the right of Israel to become a state on the ground. They said this is land of Palestine, there is no Israel. Israel, only Jesus, he can getting the right to establishing our own state. So this support is very important, but I hope so we start more step for all our supporters, not only condemn the crime of humanity was done by the Israelis daily against the Palestinian people. We need something more. They need to pay the price, they need to be punished, not only by resolution by United Nations. We have more than 800 resolutions by United Nations, nothing appear on the ground. We have more than 85 resolutions from Security Council, nothing appear on the ground, because it is Israel feels that it is above the law. So we need something more of that. Book it, Israel. We need to stop making lobbying against the countries who are supporting Israel and stopping supply arms and weapons for them, because these weapons actually got used to kill Palestinian innocent people. This weapons used to steal more and more Palestinian territories. This weapons used and this money used to build more and more settlements, Israeli settlements on our stolen land. So we need more than condemn. We need book at Israel, making lobbying against the support of Israel to stop support Israel and support just of Palestinian cause.
I think the tide needs to sway on the Palestinian side. It has been decades since the Palestinians have been suffering.
We speak, just one word, we speak about 1.5 billion Muslims around the world. More than that are Christians in the world. Jesus is a Palestinian. Okay, Muhammad alayhi salam, he became a messenger of Allah, and he came to Jerusalem, and his first way was in Qibla Awwal in Aqsa. So this land is not only for us, this is for all humanity. So when you are supporting just the Palestinian, you are supporting humanity, not only supporting the Palestinian. When you are speaking about 1.5 billion Muslims around the world, we speak only about 16 million Jews around the world. So how become that 16 million are stronger than 1.5 billion? This is strange. We speak about Jesus as a Christian, the first Christian in the world, and some Christian countries are supporting Israel. How become you are they are believe that Jewish killed Jesus, how you are supporting the killer of your own messenger. I can't understand this. That's again and again taking us for the double standard.
But Nader, this is what needs to be done. The realities need to be put forward and in a proper perspective so that people understand what is right, what is wrong, and move forward in the right direction. The people of Palestine have suffered long enough, and a just resolution needs to be on the cards, a just resolution in the form of action. Thank you very much, Nader Alturk.
Thank you very much.
Chargé d'Affaires and of course Deputy Head of Mission at the Embassy of Palestine in Pakistan. We'll be, ladies and gentlemen, coming back with our second segment now, because this has been a very important and very emotional topic for all the Muslims across the world, including us in Pakistan, and we believe very strongly for our Palestinian brethren here. Our second topic concerns India, the BBC documentary on Narendra Modi and the state of affairs as far as human rights in India is concerned. More in the following report.
Indian assault on democratic values and civil liberties has now garnered global attention. BBC has prepared 2-episode series on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi titled India, the Modi Question, that investigates the systematic campaign of Gujarat violence 2002, comprising all the hallmarks of ethnic cleansing and places direct responsibility on Modi. India has blocked the airing of BBC documentary which questioned Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership during the 2002 Gujarat riots, saying that even sharing of any clips via social media is barred. Draconian emergency laws brought in by the Modi government just 2 years ago were used to enforce the ban, widely criticized by human rights groups and digital activists. The 2021 IT rules give Indian government expansive and unchecked powers to control the censor online content and new outlets. The International Press Institute expressed its alarm regarding authorities invoking emergency laws to block the documentary. The Committee to Protect Journalists said that ordering social media platforms to block the documentary constitutes an attack on the free press that flagrantly contradicts the country's stated commitment to democratic ideals. Indian authorities detained several students in the national capital as they thwart their plans to organize a screening of BBC documentary about the 2002 Gujarat riots. These latest moves are part of wider attack on press freedom in India since Modi and his Hindu nationalist BJP came to power in 2014.
And we'll talk about this very important topic. We've again been joined by two important guests. Dr. Adam Saud continues to stay with us. He is the Dean of Faculty of Social Sciences and Humanitarian Sciences at the Bahia University in Islamabad. But we've also been joined by a very important guest. He is Brigadier Retired Rashid Wali Janjua, President of IPRI, a very important NGO that has been working diligently as far as international affairs and human rights are concerned. Thank you very much, Janjua Saab, to have joined us. I'll begin my first question with you. The Indian government put forth an amendment to the IT rules that require platforms to remove content that seem to be fake or false. Do you feel this is a double-edged sword as far as documentaries that portray the truth in the Indian so-called leaders is concerned?
Yes, I think if you're referring to BBC documentary, that's very much true. This legislation, in fact, is counterproductive. And it has been called out by several independent-minded journalists, Karan Thapar for once, and there were others like N. Ram, the former editor-in-chief and publisher of The Hindu. So they have very clearly highlighted that this documentary that was taken out using the cover of that legislation is going to be counterproductive because it is not painting India in a very positive light throughout the world. And
but it is also saying the truth.
It's absolutely true. And both N. Ram and Karan Thapar, and even a person like Shashi Tharoor, whom I thought would show more gumption in calling out this atrocity, did not speak very clearly, but considered very openly was that this documentary was perceived as a danger to Indian sovereignty, which was puerile, which was just a very a kind of a fear, paranoia on part of Indian leadership. And coming from Shashi Tharoor, Karan Thapar and Ram, these are the Indian journalists calling this thing out, and they have very clearly pointed out that this was a very objectively researched, and even the words of N. Ram, if I can paraphrase, he said that it was an excellently researched, objective and a very forthright documentary. And in this documentary, there are two parts. One was pertaining to the historical atrocities against the Muslims in 2002 in state of Gujarat, overseen by now PM Modi when he was chief minister. And the second part is what is happening now in India. I mean, it's a continuation of the same
philosophy or politics or political agendas or even divisive agenda, as far as how they are treating minorities, especially Muslims or Dalits or even Sikhs or Christians is concerned. I'd also like to understand the perspective from the West as that is concerned. Janjua Sahab, Ned Price took out a statement when he was asked this particular question about the documentary and its banning, and he said that the US supports free press across the world. Is this an indirect remark towards India as to let the truth be told, or does it have other meanings as well?
I think it's a very frank admission of truth, and despite United States proclivity to support India politically on all forums because of the Indian relevance as a surrogate against countervailing strategy against China, the statement was very direct and very clear. And not only Ned Price's statement, there were statements from UK's leadership also, and there were statements from independent journalists also, even in UK. And they have regarded this as a kind of a media blackout and a complete media apartheid. You are trying to block out something from the internet, from social media platforms in this age and this time, when social media has become a reality unto itself. So this thing is quite counterproductive.
But the fact remains in Janjua Sahab that it is not a small time YouTuber or a TikToker that has taken out this video. It is a very reputed media organization, that is the British Broadcasting Corporation, that has effectively researched this documentary and come out with facts and figures. So nothing in this has anything that can be claimed to be false. Even it has excerpts from the then diplomats who were present in India, the British diplomats that were present in India at the time of the Gujarat riots. So nothing can be said to be false or falsified, and the Gujarat riots are not something that has been pushed down the carpet, maybe in India, but not across the world. It is a sad reality that maybe the world might not accept, but it is out there.
You see, it's quite clear that it was a remarkably researched documentary. The BBC allowed Indian Army to accept that whether it was true or not. Das Gupta, one of the journalists, he was interviewed, and Arundhati Roy, she was allowed to give her statements, and all these three statements were put together very objectively and meant for the audience to decide for themselves. And Arundhati Roy, in her very inimitable words, she said that India is not managing the refugee population, but in fact manufacturing more because of its exclusivist misanthropy that is trying to impose. And this misanthropy and this xenophobia, it personifies Hindutva, which is actually driving this whole exclusivism and cultural and
and this brainwashing of the people of India, in fact, who are being led to think that India has all of a sudden become a Hindu state, when it has never been a Hindu state. It has been a so-called pluralistic country, which unfortunately no longer is, as more of a theocratic state now than a pluralistic state. But the fact remains that this was not what India was perceived to be.
This kind of xenophobia has driven even those who are more balanced and pro-India. The leaders in Kashmir like Farooq Abdullah, who have stated that this is not Gandhi's India, this is Nathuram Godse's India. So coming from somebody who always supported the Indian stance, this is a very, very strong statement. And this is the reality. And if you have seen the documentary, I'm sure you've seen, the second part is most emotive, and it one gets a visceral feeling of hatred against the kind of atrocities perpetrated against the women, 11,234 women raped. And one of the episodes in that, it showed somebody being tortured, and according to a lawyer from Kashmir, Habil, that torture was broadcast for the whole neighborhood to be heard and to instill fear and terror. So that's the kind of reality that the Indians and the Indian Muslims, minorities
are being subjected to.
Yeah, they are living that reality, and
That
that's a
is
very
true.
ugly reality.
It's a very ugly and a very sad reality, to say the least. Dr. Adam Saud, we've got reactions from the opposition in India as well. Rahul Gandhi, commenting on the BBC documentary, says that the truth always comes out and prevails despite the Modi regime bids to suppress it. There have been different protests by opposition parties, political parties, other groups against the Modi-led BJP regime's ban to this documentary as well. It has been screened in 1 or 2 universities as well. Will this documentary lead to the emergence of another political reality within India, or do you feel that the Modi-led government is so strong in the way it has handled or brainwashed or terrorized the people of its country that nothing will happen despite whatever documentary might come out, despite whatever reality might be shown to the people?
Well, we have to see this from multiple perspectives again. You see that one is the internal situation, internal political situation of India, where we see that Modi regime, like General Sahib has said, that it is practically manifesting Hindutva right now. This is one of the most important thing. Secondly, we have seen that over the period of time, although they have put ban on some of the information, but at the same time they have thoroughly propagated their ideology among the masses of India.
And the Indian media has played a very important role in that.
Definitely, that was supporting the Hindutva ideology over there. And then we see that the Modi actually, he started it from Kashmir when he revoked those articles, and we see that the pellet guns, the killings of the Kashmiris, they started over there.
We've seen those images.
They banned media over there, and then they started, implementing that kind of strategy within the mainland India. It's not only the Muslims, like General Sahib has already explained it. It's the Christians, the Dalits as well, where the mainstream Hindus actually they are forcing their ideology onto them. Now, what's the problem? We talk about the international community. That what international community, the Americans, they have given their statement, the British, they have their own stances. But the problem is, right now, their interest and the India's interest, they converge right now. And like, we were discussing during the previous section where the Israelis, they are being supported by America. Same
a lot of similarities in the way, in the methodologies of both the countries. Janjua sir, which brings me to a point, an interesting question. The Indian efforts to block this documentary, do you feel it has had an adverse effect, in fact, for the global media to even watch it more efficiently and in more detail? Hasn't it gained, increased the popularity of this documentary and inadvertently also the realities concerning Narendra Modi and his government?
It has in fact given it popularity on steroids. There is a Barbara Streisand effect. That's an effect that she sued a journalist. Somebody was photographing a coastline, which included her house back in 2003, I believe. And before that, only 2 people had seen. Before that, suing. And after that, there was a proliferation. There were lakhs of people who saw that. So that's the same effect here. Had it not been banned so crassly, it would have generated a debate at best, and might be a contrarian view could have been factored in. But this blanket ban, this has not gone well amongst the international audience as well as the domestic intelligentsia inside India. And there is, mind you, a very large diaspora, Indian diaspora. And that diaspora also is in the grip of a Hindutva-driven RSS advocacy groups. In United States, there are groups like HSS, Seva International. From 2001 to 19, they spent something like $158 billion using those 6 charities cover to curry favor with the US policymakers. So that's a whole network. They started in 1966 in UK, and now they have gone to 66 branches in UK. In Leicester, riots, which is being mentioned by several who discussed this BBC film, 2 lakh tweets were from India, and this was discovered by a Dalit, watchdog Equality Lab, and an independent media house, TRT. They also called out this thing, that geotagged 2 lakh tweets were sent from India to stoke unrest in Leicester.
All right.
So that's the danger, that it's not only internal and intrinsic to India. Now this thing is being sent abroad also, and therein lies its insidious nature, because this kind of misanthropy which is being permitted just because India has big commercial interest and strategic leverage, this is a travesty of justice.
I totally agree with you. And I don't know where all of this travesty of justice will go to in the coming days. But my last question, Dr. Adam, pertains to the 2021 IT rules that India has put. I'd like a very quick phrase as answer to this. Who is the next target after this BBC Two documentary? Do you feel more and more content on YouTube, on Twitter is going to be removed or not allowed within Indian territories that somehow directly or indirectly insinuates, for all the right reasons, what India is perpetrating?
Yes, if Modi's regime continues, yes, it is going to happen. Not only the social media, but mainstream electronic media would also be coming under the...
but it has already, the mainstream Indian media is already under the influence of the BJP. We see there's a unanimous point of view when it comes to the BJP, its policies, the way it is doing. Everybody is in favor of what the BJP is doing. Thank you so very much, Brigadier Rashid Wali Janjua Saab, President IPRI. Thank you very much, Dr. Adam Saud, Faculty of Humanities and Social Sciences at the Bahariya University, to have joined us, who have talked to us so candidly about this very, very important issue that is plaguing our region and India and the Indian Muslims in particular, and the Indian leadership that is perpetrating these barbarities on the Indian Muslims. Ladies and gentlemen, let's come to our last 2 stories very, very quickly. Canada has appointed its first special representative on combating Islamophobia. Journalist and activist Amira El Ghawabi is going to fill the post to serve as a champion, advisor, expert and representative to support and enhance the federal government's efforts to fight against Islamophobia, systemic racism, racial discrimination and religious intolerance. The need of the hour. Every country needs to follow suit of what Canada has been doing, and Canada has done it in the past as well, and we laud Canada for efforts such as these. I hope the world is watching. Our last story pertains to Hina Rabbani Khar Sahiba, who is leading a delegation to Geneva. On the 30th of this month, there is going to be a Human Rights Council meeting where the Pakistani side is going to highlight the important contributions that our country has made towards the human rights discourse and norm building. The Pakistan National Progress Report under the UPR will also be shown and presented at this very important council. This is going to be Pakistan's 4th review. Pakistan has been reviewed under this process in 2008, 12 and 17. And of course, important policy related matters are also going to be discussed during this important mood. This is human rights. This is what the whole program today has been about. Whether it be the issue in Palestine, whether it be what is happening in illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir, or to the Muslims within India, it is all about human rights abuses, and these need to end. The world needs to understand that they cannot be polarized as far as the way they are handling world affairs is concerned. Allah Hafiz.